as the executive director, I handle daily operations here, oversee staff, our guests, just have like the case managers and like family advocate check in with me to see how everybody is doing. But because we are so small, I also interact with our guests on a daily basis. I coordinate all of our network support from our churches. So when we have a host schedule, or I am in constant contact with our coordinators and what they are doing, or if they have any needs or problems. I pay all of our bills, grocery shop.
Most of the accounting,
yeah, payroll. Sometimes I drive the van. Sometimes I am here, just hanging out with families. I go out into the community. I do the opposite side of fundraising. I'm more involved in the community to get more people to know about us. I sit on the executive committee at the Continuum of Care in town. I co-chair the by name list for veterans. We're trying to end veteran homelessness in Genesee County. And I also run the inter-service team committee, which is basically all of the local shelters and anyone in Genesee County that has some type of shelter or program that they run to help homelessness. We all get together and, try to be a conducive unit.
which definitely helps with efficiency,
yes,
I think, as well,
sure.
so that there's not so much duplication out there. One thing that I think we haven't talked about that I think if you wouldn't mind talking about, we call our program participants guests. I don't know if you've picked up on that, but there's a pretty special reason why we do that.
So one of the biggest things about our program is that when you come stay here, it's like you're a guest in our home. Obviously we want you to be comfortable, not too comfortable because we don't want you to want to stay, but we want everyone to feel like they are at home. The volunteers, one of our coordinators says it best, you are not here as a volunteer to make yourself feel better. You are not here to get a person's life story. You are not here to say, well, I interacted with this homeless person today. You are here to help provide a meal, to help provide a safe place, to help, maybe someone will want to talk to you, maybe someone won't. So everybody who comes through our program is no different than a guest in our home. And that's the way we like our churches to also conduct business while they're there as well. And at the church, the biggest thing about it is that is their space. They're all set up with a room where they stay with their family, because we are a family shelter. You have to have children to stay here.
The key ingredient.
Yes, and that is their place. That is their safe place. And most of our churches will not allow anyone in their bedroom during the week while they're there. Here, everything is shared. Our spaces are shared, our kitchen is shared, our quiet room is shared. Me and Nicole share an office.
Shared, yes.
Our playroom.
Everything is shared. The restrooms are shared, the laundry is shared. There's nothing.
And I constantly tell them, if you want to come have a picnic in our office, have at it. Because we share space here. Like, that's the way we have to function. But in a church, that is their space. So that is their home, that is their place where they can go and just be and have themselves and their family. And I think that really helps in comparison to a lot of other shelters when they may go somewhere and they don't really get to stay together. And if you have a dad and a son that's over the age of 13, they're at the men's shelter, and you and your little kids and your wife are probably at a family shelter. But it's really not a family shelter because they don't get to stay as a family. So that is one of the biggest things here, is when we say family promise, we mean family, and we let them have a guest. They are our family as well. They're a guest in our home. They're a guest to our family.
Absolutely. So my function as the development director, I wear a lot of hats. So does Tiffani. Tiffani wears just as many hats as I do. I write grants. I organize our events along with our committee members, which make up most of our board members as well. and any opportunity that we can to actually earn money, and I say that loosely because we're a nonprofit and we really just give it away, is really my function. I try to keep our readers, if you will, they're not really readers, but our volunteers, our supporters, the community informed of what we're doing, so that that we can stay top of mind of what we're doing and how we're doing it and how we're helping families, and really just knocking on every door I can and unturning every stone to find more money.
Family Promise is an answer to an epidemic of unaffordable housing. No one should have to work 40 hours a week and not be able to afford for them and their children to live somewhere.
Absolutely. And I think that to tag into that, because I completely agree, I think that what we don't really realize in this day and age is our whole job, prospects, everything, it's all shifted, right? We want everything immediately, but yet we don't want to pay anything for it. So you have a lot of people who work part-time jobs to make ends meet, and the other issue is they're working part-time jobs with no benefits. They're working part-time jobs where sometimes they're making, $10 an hour. Sometimes maybe you're lucky and you're at a fast food place and you're making $14 an hour because nobody wants to work at a fast food place. But then you still have, a couple of kids that you have to put in daycare. Daycare is just as expensive as housing, and
if not more.
Right? Exactly. And so it is truly, it really is an epidemic. It really is. I read a statistic recently that the homeless population is actually becoming more and more prevalent in suburbia land than it ever has been before, because there's not enough affordable housing. And people don't really think about that. They think about it as it's somewhere else. Homelessness happens somewhere else. But homelessness could happen to your favorite waiter, waitress at a restaurant, you're the person you kibitz with at Kroger or wherever you shop. It can happen anywhere.
Yeah, or even you could be working with someone that's homeless every single day and not even know it. Your child could be sitting next to a homeless child every single day and they don't know it. They have no idea that the people around them are experiencing that type of crisis, and it's prevalent everywhere. It doesn't have to be, just in Flint, Michigan. It happens all over.
And I think that is one of the, I don't want to say coolest, it is cool that we are part of a national organization that helps address homelessness around our country, but it's prevalent in so many communities. I know that there's a program out there in California specifically, where people are sleeping in their cars, and there's a whole nonprofit agency that has been established to keep those people safe while they're sleeping in their cars and provide them a place to do their laundry and take a shower and get their mail. And that's a whole nother nonprofit organization in and of itself.
But it's addressing a different level of homelessness. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the answer, unfortunately, is not just housing. That's why I think a big thing about Family Promise is also prevention and stabilization. Yes, we want to help people who are homeless become housed, but if we can divert them from ever becoming homeless in the first place and prevent their child from having to deal with those things, and also change things generationally for their whole family, right, then we're doing something. We're actually preventing a family line of people from experiencing homelessness. And we're changing their future, their kids' future, their grandkids' future.
Absolutely.
That is the whole point of Family Promise in itself.
Oh my gosh. It's got to be the kids. The kids really, don't get me wrong, I love the success stories from the parents. I've been here 3.5 years now, so I definitely have a few more graduates under my belt at this point. But the things that I remember are the kids. Coming home from school and, running around the corner. My office is around the corner, and so I'm kind of tucked in the back of the office. But Nicole, I want to share with you whatever happened today. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. We've got a couple of parents that thankfully we still see, and I'm really thankful that we get to stay in touch with those parents, because it's so heartwarming to see where they've grown, how they've grown, and what they're doing, and how their lives have changed, how their kids' lives have changed, all for the better. I mean, that part is really, really amazing, really.
I have a few. However, I actually just started working here in November, and I think my favorite memory was when Ann called me and asked me if I still wanted the job.
It's true.
Yeah, it is true.
We're pretty excited when you came. Yeah, that's very true.
Originally, it just didn't work out, and I wasn't, the right person at the time, and they called me about a month later, and asked me if I still wanted the job, and I was like, yeah, I do. And I truly believe that I am here for a reason. I believe that everything that I've done up until this point in my life has prepared me to be here to help people, and I think that the people that are around me are also here for that reason as well, because they all make me better in a lot of ways.
I think the first thing that comes out of my mouth is we're family friendly, and that is a big deal, because you can't take your kids to every volunteer situation. I mean, you can, but not all of the. You're obviously going to be questioning, are my kids going to see things that I wouldn't
Want them
be
to.
ready for them to see, want them to see, et cetera, et cetera.
Are they going to be safe?
Are they going to, exactly, absolutely. Are they going to hear things that I'm not ready for them to, all of those things. But because we start off with families, I mean, we're a family organization, so the families coming into the program, they're background checked and they're drug screened to make sure that they're safe for everyone. Because sure, it would be a little dicey for a younger person to experience something that maybe they're not prepared for. But what about, somebody's grandma who's, in her 80s or maybe even 90s, but still wants to give back to the community? They might not be in a spot to be able to deal with someone who, needs training and counseling to be able to support. So really, that is the best thing about our program, without question, is that anyone can do it. And you don't need to have a social work degree. You don't need to have any specialized training. You just need to have a heart and want to share it with people in your community that need a hand up.
I would say any idea or version or picture in your head that you have of a homeless person, which in general, if you ask people, excuse me, when you hear the word homeless, what do you think? To them, they think of a spanger, which is a guy on the side of the road asking for change. Mm-hmm. Homeless, will work for food, whatever. I
Dirty,
would say,
unshaven.
yeah, I would say
right.
Any misconception that you have of homelessness would be thrown away here. I would say, don't be surprised if you see someone like you. Don't be surprised if you see someone your kids know, which has happened.
It has definitely happened.
Yeah, people don't realize that homelessness affects everyone. There is no genre, class. It can happen to anyone. And I think people have a very large misconception of what homelessness looks like. And if they volunteer in our program, I think it not only brings awareness to the fact that it could happen to one of your kids' classmates, it could happen to one of your coworkers. It shows you that homelessness is not, it's a crisis, but it doesn't, oh, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, it's not the chronic. It's not the chronic picture that people see. Not that that doesn't exist. That does exist, but I would say by and large that is not the only homeless population. Yeah. People sleeping outside on park benches, under bridges, things like that. And I mean, sometimes people are sleeping in their car, but they're sleeping in their car and they're going to work every day, and they're trying to figure out, where am I gonna take a shower? Where am I gonna drop my kids off at daycare? All of those things happen for our families.
It doesn't discriminate. That's what I was gonna say. Homelessness does not discriminate. It can literally happen to anyone. And I think that when they come here and they see the cute little faces of these little kids that aren't dirty, that are clean, that, and their parents that aren't those, or their conception of what homeless is, it kind of opens their eyes to a brand new world of what is happening, or what is the epidemic of homelessness, especially for families and for children who are unable to afford housing even when they do work. People think that people who are homeless don't work, or they're lazy, or and that's not the case. I would say almost 75% of our guests do work, but they cannot afford housing, which is a huge problem. If people are going to work every day and they're working 40 hours a week, but they can't afford daycare, and they can't afford food, and they can't afford rent on an apartment that doesn't even provide each of their children with their own bedroom, that is not just a problem for, us as Family Promise. That is a problem for our country, for, the United States in general. It is happening everywhere. It is not just happening here.
I went to the chiropractor this morning, and she was kind of giving me a hard time because she's like, that's right, you know how to ask people for money. How do I ask people for money? I need $10,000 for something for a friend of mine. And I said, well, it's not as easy as it looks. And she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, how do you find it? And I said, it's a lot about relationships. I said, and you don't just necessarily start off asking for money, like boom, and you get it. Sometimes, yes, you stumble into it, and that's fantastic, and people are in a spot and something good has happened to them and they want to pay it forward, and that absolutely happens. And we are so thankful and so blessed when that happens. But really it's about relationships, and it's about describing the type of people that we help, and it is about building and fostering those relationships so that when we do have a drive or an event or a grant opportunity or a need, when someone moves out and we need beds, or we need a whole house full of furniture or what have you, that they're tied in enough with our cause and with really giving someone a hand up. And even though in some instances they're giving someone a hand out, but it's a hand out that they've worked for, that they've
earned
excuse me, that they really have earned because they've done the hard work. They've gone through the budgeting classes. They've learned how to save money again. And that's something that we didn't really talk about, but there are some key nuances to our program that make me feel good going out and asking people for money, because it isn't just a handout. I mean, we're teaching people how to budget, why the difference between a need and a want, how to balance the need of cable or the want of cable versus the need of paying rent, or paying car payment or paying for insurance. And all of that happens while they're here with us, so that when they get back out on their own, they think about those things, because sometimes those things were never addressed, and if your parents didn't teach you and you didn't learn it in school, how could you possibly learn it? It's not readily, that information's not readily available, even if it seems like it's the most common sense. It's not
for everybody.
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah. Just like credit. Like teaching people what credit is. Yeah, we offer a credit class here because a lot of them don't. They don't understand what credit is. They don't understand how it works, how to make it better.
What happens.
How much credit affects your pay scale and pay. Yeah, like they just don't.
Mm-hmm. Whether or not you could buy a house and keep from renting. I mean, but all of those things get tied in together, and if you are in the cycle, and it's kind of like the poverty cycle. It's not even just a homeless, not homeless cycle. It is really being low income sometimes keeps you in low income because you just physically don't have the tools to break the cycle. And yeah, so the hardest part about raising money, really it's maintaining the relationships and not being afraid to ask everyone. Excuse me. Really, I ask absolutely everyone everywhere I go. It's the God's honest truth. And either I'm asking for money, or I'm asking for your time, or I'm asking for you to come and hang out and and share a meal with our families, or I ask people. And it's funny because someone asked me this a long time ago, when did you start volunteering? And I really started when I was little, like really little. My parents were both ski patrollers, and so my dad used to dress my sister and I up in these cute little bibs, and they had they were blue, and they had like a yellow cross, which is the sign of like a ski patroller, and he would put pins all over us to go out and sell, and he would send us off. So here goes these two little kids, and my sister and I are very close in age, so we looked like twins, and we would scurry off on the ski hill, and we would be like, hey, Miss, would you like to buy one of these cute pins for $5 and support the ski patrol? So really, I really started doing this when I was a very young child. Okay, so I would say the hardest part of my job is equilibrium. I have to make sure that everyone is happy, which is obviously a very tough gig. And when I say make sure that everyone's happy, I mean make sure that our network, our coordinators are happy because people are being respectful, and their volunteers are happy because they're volunteering their time and people are actually using their time to go towards something. And really, they're our biggest donor base, to be honest. We operate on such a tiny little budget. I mean, our annual budget right now is $186,000. However, if you put in all of our in-kind monies, that if we were to have to go out and raise all of that to have a 24-hour shelter, to have meals, to have laundry service, to have all of that, all of those components that you would need in any other home type situation, we would have $1.2 million budget. So we do so much with so little because of them. So they are without question our key ingredient. I mean, the families for sure, chicken, egg, still. Families have to have families with children, but we couldn't do anything without our volunteers and their churches providing all of the rest of that.
Which makes my job very difficult because you have families who, unfortunately, they were born into a system that fights against them. And they are taught from a very young age how to manipulate and how to navigate, would be a better word, not manipulate, but navigate the system as it works against them the best way that they're taught and they know how. And when that happens, they almost feel attacked when someone is either trying to help them or when they even feel like it's not genuine, that someone is trying to help them, they don't know if someone's being genuine. And unfortunately, they were raised that way to not understand if someone's actually trying to help them or if they're being deceitful and get information from them. And they also are not geared to follow specific rules because they're adults, and adults don't like to follow rules, especially when they feel like they're being treated in a manner in which they don't like, or when they're not being treated as adults, they feel like they're being treated as children. And so when that happens, it makes my job very difficult because you have people who rebel against the system, and then I have to make those people understand that what they are doing is affecting the overall integrity of our program. And we can't have that, because when that happens, then we stop having churches, and then we stop being able to do what we're here for, which is essentially help people. So that would definitely be the toughest part of my job, is finding equal ground between making them feel like they're welcome and they're at home and that they are guests in our home, and also making sure that our churches feel like we're being respectful of their time and of their energy and their financial
and
support
their commitments
as well.
and yes,
Yeah, to
whether it be
everything that
time
we do.
or financial, it is.
Definitely.
It's a very difficult. It's almost like log rolling.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I hate to equate it to it, but you're going forward.
Yeah.
You're going back. You know, there's so much. There's so many people that have a say and want to have a say, and then you've got the families, and everyone grew up differently. Everyone grew up with different backgrounds, and and you only know what you know, and sometimes that's hard to keep that in mind, even if you're giving your time, or you're giving your money, or you're giving a gift of stuff that sofa, what have you. I mean, it happens.
And ultimately, the worst part is, obviously, in order to come here, you have to have children. So any decision that I make, in a sense, and I shouldn't say any decision that I make, because ultimately it's not the decision that I made. Everyone has free will. Everyone makes decisions. And they're adults, and I cannot control their behavior. However, when I have to ask a family to leave and I don't know where their child is going to sleep, that very much so affects me personally, even though this is my job. It is one of those things that makes that really hard to leave at home, because I know that their parents' choices were not the correct choices that they needed to make. And it doesn't just affect them, it affects their kids. And when you see their kids every single day, when you hold their kids, when you talk to their kids, when they draw you pictures, when they give you hugs every morning, that is, I mean, it destroys you, because you want to help them.
Right. And they become part of your
And we are
family.
part of their,
right.
We're part of their structure, a part of their life. And then they want to know. We have kids even that leave shelter because their parents graduate and they get their own homes and they have their own bedrooms. And I can't tell you, even just in the short time that I've been here, how many of those moms say to me, I want to go stay at the church tonight. Is there a church that we can go stay at? I want to go see Miss Mary, or I want to go see Miss Carolyn, or I want to go see, Miss Susan. Like, those people become a part of their life as well. And so when you are faced with parents that don't always make the right decisions,
it's really hard.
It's really hard, because you can't let one person's choice affect the 30 that come after it. But that doesn't make it any easier to make that decision.